Hi guys, it is Monday, July 12th already, which is a little insane. My name is Leyla Messian. I'm a recent graduate of UCLA, class of 2021, so graduated this past June, where I double majored in sociology and communication as a transfer student, actually. And I've been working with Ron here and there. I've been attending his events and holding informational interviews for my fellow peers. And I think it's something that we can all really work on and improve from, just in terms of how to conduct them, what questions to ask, but also how to interact with our professionals and how they can help us and how we can help them moving forward. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Whitney Frye. She is the director of SafeSport at USA Basketball and currently lives in Colorado. And she has a beautiful dog that you may see pop up, but we love that human connection as well. So I will hand it over to Whitney, and if you want to do a quick introduction of yourself or just go into your education and how you got to where you are today and the steps that you took.
Yeah, so my name is Whitney Frye. I'm actually from Greensboro, North Carolina, so kind of the home of the civil rights movement. So where you see February 1, that's kind of where I'm from. And so actually civil rights has been a really big part of my life since I was a little kid. My granddad is the first African-American Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court. And he was the first African-American student to be admitted and enrolled to UNC Chapel Hill School of Law. And so, it's kind of like law is in my blood, but not necessarily something that I thought that I wanted to do. I didn't want to be that person that said, your dad is my dad is actually a former Superior Court judge too. So your dad's a judge, your granddad's a justice. Are you going to be doing law? And I was always like, no. But I went to UNC and I thought I was going to be a journalism major and do PR. And then I quickly found out that that wasn't really my path. So I majored in communication studies with a concentration in rhetorical studies, and then went to law school after a gap year. And so, I went to North Carolina Central University School of Law. So I have my HBCU experience as well, which helps me a lot because it really kind of ties into that diversity, inclusion, and just really championing. I think it's more of a champion type of role that I take now. And so after law school, I worked for the Social Security Administration, and then I became general counsel for the North Carolina High School Athletic Association, and then I moved out here to USA Basketball, where I'm the director of SafeSport. So it's a kind of a compliance, I call it quasi-legal position, but it's given me a lot of opportunity to really do things that I'm very passionate about and that I love, and then also protect people kind of in that legal role as well. So I take it as advocate, counselor, all of that. That's really kind of what I really like to do.
Amazing. I love that. I want to switch into what you do and your role as director of SafeSport at USA Basketball and what your day-to-day looks like. And I think that a lot of people they've never really heard of SafeSport.
Yeah.
So if you want to just tap into that, just for those that aren't familiar with it.
Yeah, so SafeSport is actually one of those programs from it actually came out of the U.S. Olympic Committee, but now there is a Center for SafeSport in Denver. And so it's really to try and prevent abuse and misconduct in sport, to make sure that, every sport is, free from abuse and misconduct. And so people can really just enjoy the sport absent any, interference from maybe sexual misconduct, hazing, bullying, and things of that nature. So every national governing body, which is what USA Basketball is, kind of has someone in this role. So I draft all of the policies, make sure that we're enforcing those policies. We have a background screen policy. So I'm the person that's reviewing all the background screens. We do have another division called the Youth and Sport Division, where we have our coach license program. So I am kind of over the compliance for that as well. So really when people ask me out in the street, what do you do? What is SafeSport? The small thing is that I say that I'm the person that keeps Larry Nassers out of basketball. And so that's kind of what, I do there. I'm making sure that all of our background screens are good. Our policies are good. I serve as the liaison to the U.S. Olympic Committee and the U.S. Center for SafeSport, as well as, kind of serve as advisor to CEO, CFO, and all of the heads of the different departments regarding whether or not they're compliant with the policies that we created for USA Basketball, making sure that they're tailored to our programs. And so, yeah, it's kind of a different type of thing. I call it monotonous chaos. So every day can be different. It just depends. Right now we're preparing for the Olympics. So a lot of that compliance information is coming through me. I'm talking with the people for the U.S. Olympic Committee, to our national teams, to the CEO. Then we also have, there's an open window for the NCAA, which requires a USAB Gold Coach license. So, a lot of the grassroots coaches are coming through our program. So I'm looking at all their background screens and making sure that, whatever they have on there that they're supposed to, making sure that we're keeping out the bad actors. And if there are any individuals who are submitting information regarding, that could be, that tantamount to sexual misconduct or child abuse, then I am a mandatory reporter under the law, and I have to report to the U.S. Center for SafeSport or to law enforcement.
So you're the woman with the red lipstick and a whole lot of power, it seems like.
Well, I mean, I like to, be a little bit bold. Everybody doesn't have to look, cookie cutter. That's what I always tell people. Like, when you get out of school, I always thought that you had to like wear a white shirt and a black skirt. And, I felt like I was a member of the usher board. And so when I was doing interviews, I really was not myself. And so like, now I figured out how to be myself, but also be in the roles that make me happy.
No, that's amazing. I think it's that self-exploration and self-discovery is really big. I hope that one day I'll figure out what my look is. Maybe I can rock that red lipstick one day. I hope.
Oh,
first I got to figure out how to maintain the curls, and then we'll work our way
I'm
up.
still working. I'm still learning how to do my curls too. So, they look good on you. You have to figure out what works for you and kind of what makes you glow. So, I just try to make sure that I'm looking my best for whoever I'm meeting.
Exactly. And thank you so much, Whitney. I really appreciate it. So, okay, going back to director of SafeSport, I think that, do you think that it's very different from your other roles? And I guess if so, how have you, I guess, adapted and learned the new roles and responsibilities? And I think go for it.
Yeah, I think being a general counsel at a high school association, it was very different than this. I was doing like HR, I was doing a lot of education law, talking to coaches and doing a lot of our insurance things. So, learning different, facets of the business and, talking to, school boards and things like that. So, it was really heavily law centered, but also personal, personality centered, so that I have to be able to provide this to, our member schools. But here at the at USA Basketball, it's a little bit different. We're a national governing body. We're under the Ted Stevens Act, but then we're also under our board of directors. We have our own like kind of rules and regulations that we're trying to fit into. And this SafeSport is really a burgeoning movement. And so I've tried to make sure that, I think for what I took from being at the high school association to here is also that relationship building, but also that trust building and asking questions. Like, I think that that's one of the things that people just, assume that lawyers have the answers. And for me, what I realized is that I don't know everything, and I'm going to ask questions if I need to. And so that was one of the things that helped me to really make those relationships, is I was asking questions that people were like, oh, that is a good question. What do we do about that? And so it's helping to like always asking questions. Like, people used to see me in meetings, like just writing, and they're like, what are you writing? It's things like whenever you're talking, I'm like thinking, okay, maybe I need to modify this rule to make this work. Or maybe I have a question about this that I need to ask the U.S. Center for SafeSport, or what do I ask the Olympic Committee? So I think that it's, the role is a little bit different, but being able to ask the questions that are necessary to really craft your own role. Because I'm the first person at USA Basketball. I'm the first SafeSport director. So there's no real blueprint. And so having to figure out what the blueprint is and understanding, what I first did was took the manual, I took the handbook, and I just read everything. And I'm like, okay, where did this come from? Where do we get these disqualifying criteria? So that was one of the things, like, where did this come from? So it took me a little while, and I'm asking people, and they're like, I don't know. So I figured out where it came from. That way I can figure out how to modify it better with our background screening processes, comparing and contrasting different people's criteria, figuring out how do we apply this to basketball? What is my real goal here? And so, just really creating a mission for myself and taking that mission-based approach to everything has really helped to kind of pull it all together. So my I have a personal motto. My personal motto is to make an imprint of positive change wherever I go. But then here at USA Basketball is to really just allow people to participate in the sport, so long as it doesn't cause injury, or to the athletes that they're participating with, the children, or to USA Basketball itself. So that's really kind of the umbrella that I've operated under, but then understanding like there are different facets to that. So, you have that general rule and then all of your exceptions. And so that's kind of how, I take, that law type of mentality to what I do so that I can craft my role in a way that makes sense to me.
And you're doing a fantastic job at it.
I
think I give you a lot of kudos for being, I guess, like the first in your position and really just like taking that lead on it. I think it's super hard, even for a lot of us, like with clubs and stuff, like our position was never a position. And like, we don't really have the opportunity to talk to someone in the previous year. We're kind of just like thrown into it. And it's like, all right, figure it out. And it's like, I'm at a new institution. I don't know half the things. I don't know about the thousands of clubs that exist,
Right.
but it's a great way to just like learn to adapt and use your resources. Especially like for myself in one of my positions, like we took 70, I was the marketing director. I was not events or anything. Like I took 70 kids to the UCLA basketball game and they're like, I didn't even know we could get $5 tickets. And I was like, I didn't either, but I looked it up and I saw that this was an opportunity and I was like, you know what, this is a memory that all of us will remember. And it so far it has been, so it's been super rewarding. And I'm sure that it feels the same way for you on a much higher level when you're the head of a department.
The same thing. I mean, I think that being at work, but in, being in life, just, it's the same kinds of rewards. And so try not to take too many, kudos for, just work. Because I think that, I was built to do this. And so this is just kind of, one part of my personality or one part of what I'm made to do. So, I just kind of think about like, who are the people inside? What do they need? What are the goals that they have? Sometimes I, ask people, what keeps you up at night? And then I try to fix it. But then on the outside, what keeps me up at night? And how do I fix that? And so those are kind of the cycles of, the ways that I think to try and make sure that I'm always doing my best.
Yeah. If you don't mind me asking, are you able to share like what the common answer is to that? Because like I wish I'm trying to answer that for myself and I like can't. There's just so many of them.
I think it's just different personalities and CEOs, they're really their mind is everywhere. So it's gonna be something different kind of like every day. Yeah. I think I asked one person and it was their team. And so that actually helped me to understand that they really are very focused on people and personalities. And so, some people, if it's a CEO, they're worried about the cash flow, making sure that we're documenting all this information. So I think it just depends on the organization. A lot of times, I think that innovation hasn't necessarily gotten to the smaller or private industries as well. So a lot of times you'll hear, but we've always done it this way. And so you're like, well, we don't have to. And so trying to figure out how to make sure that you're, translating that we don't have to something that's a viable solution for them to change, something that has worked. If it has worked, they're like, why is it broke? Don't fix it. But that's not innovation. And so I think that that's really something that, I've really tied into. So there's no magic answer. Everyone's is different.
No magic answer. It's just about adapting and innovating. And I think that like we see that even with like COVID and it's just like, my mom never used Zoom. Are you kidding me? She's like, how do I turn this on? But it's like, now she knows how to use it. Now she knows what's, you know what? It's like mom and pop shops that had to learn how to use Uber Eats and Grubhub and Postmates. And it's a time when you're forced to, you learn it. None of our parents knew how to use smartphones and text. My mom is a pro now. She uses the dictating thing. Like she knows how to run it. So
my grandma actually sends me the best GIFs. Like, there's a debate between GIF and GIF, whatever, but she sends the best ones when she's like 90 years old. So, like she's always like, I love you, darling, with like the little bear with like the heart and stuff. Yeah, so I think that it's like innovation is really understanding like how can you make something that's accessible. And I think accessibility and innovation kind of go together. And so it's really about like, who are my stakeholders? And your stakeholders can be outside and inside. And so how do I adapt what I know that I'm good at and the way that I'm able to communicate that and tailor experiences so that they want to be a part of it.
Yeah. And I think as students, we all should have a platform, whether that be a website or just, your personal brand and your personal experiences, and like what can you bring to the table, and you got to show the company or the hiring manager what they're missing out on if they don't hire you, because we all bring something in, whether that's like combining two of your passions together. Like for me, I love sports and food. I'm interning at a cookie place, but I also finished with #sports. And I'm just trying to figure out, how do I combine those together? Is it a gifting box thing that the teams give for their employees during the season with cookies? I don't know. We'll
Or is
figure it
it,
out.
high school kids using that as like a fundraising thing, like that's,
Yep.
like for their team. You never know. Like there's so many different things that you can, interject in between the, the both. So, kudos to you, because I love cookies. They're awesome.
Well, I'm happy to actually send you a box for sure. As a big thank you for this. But I want to wrap it up with, I think, one more question. Just like any last tips or advice that you have for those who either like want to go into law school, or just like general life advice on like the lessons you've learned with your experiences.
Yeah, I think what you said earlier is, I actually had like, mentoring doesn't end, once you are, out of school. Like it's something that you just kind of have to, continue to use because we don't know everything. We're not like the internet, you can't just Google it in your head like, oh, I got this. But one of the mentors that I had, I think last week, she said that, it's something that you said kind of, is like, she said, you have to have a thesis about yourself. What's your own thesis? And what makes you unique, and then market that. And she was just saying, like, you kind of have to understand, what is your market value and how are you working to increase that? And so I think it's about learning, it's about connections, it's about innovation, it's about really, understanding that we're not static figures. So we're going to change and really embracing those things that don't work, like working at the Social Security Administration. Who thinks that's fun? Not anybody. Or, my externship with the Internal Revenue Service, like, who really wants to be part of the IRS? You don't want to be like, hi, I'm Whitney Frye, I got a badge, but I think that those things, like, what can I learn from this experience? How can I, make this a part of me? I think that's really important, is understanding who you are and what you have to give to the world. It's not necessarily about like the job title. I think everybody's always like, I want to be CEO, I want to be a lawyer, but what do you want to do? And how do you want to make your mark on the world? Like you're here for a reason. You're important. Like you're, whatever you're supposed to be doing is really supposed to, make that impact. And it could be small, it could be large, it doesn't matter. I always call it the legacy effect. Like what you do now is going to have impact for generations to come. So what are you doing to kind of bolster yourself? And, law school is just it's a crazy place. Like I was skinny. I didn't eat all the time. I drank coffee like every day. And it's just like one of those stressful moments that really kind of said, okay, this is how you react under stress. You got to figure some stuff out. And it helped me to figure out how my brain works. And I didn't really get that experience in undergrad. I was a cheerleader at Carolina. So it was really just about like, I thought that my identity was wrapped up in cheerleading almost. And I feel like now I know who my identity is. I'm Whitney. And there's so many different things that kind of come along with that. And law school is just a place that if you want to be there, good for you. If you don't want to be there, find something else. It's just really really embracing all the things that you're made to do. And really learning how to kind of make those things shine. So I think that's a lifelong pursuit. My granddad's like 90 and he's still out there like, let's do our calisthenics. Let's go on this board. My grandmother, she's the YWCA in Greensboro is named after her. They had like the Fry Fest on Sunday yesterday and she's out there speaking. And it's like, it's a lifelong pursuit of what you want to do. Like one of my mentors told me, she was like, don't look at the title, look at the role. And so for me, I really love being an advocate. I love being a counselor. I love interacting with people. I love seeing what they can do and just trying to figure out, how can I help? Like, what can I do? And sometimes people don't like that. And so you're like, all right, let's go this way, and it's like, you're not for everybody and it's fine. And I think sometimes we take those things to heart, like, dang, what did I do wrong? And it's like, sometimes you didn't do anything wrong. I don't know if you've ever seen that not commercial, cartoon called Recess. I don't know. It was when I was younger. I'm a little older, but there was a kid named TJ Detweiler, and there was a kid that didn't like him. Everybody in the school loved him except for that kid. He's like, I don't know, I just don't like you. But he took it to heart. But that actually was a really good lesson. It's like, everybody's not going to like you, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with you if they don't really kind of identify with you, if you're not connecting, because it just may not be the mesh that you need. And really in embracing those opportunities that just don't work. What can I learn from this? What didn't go right? What went right? How can I move forward from this? And so everything's not going to be Instagram worthy. Everything's not going to be oh, it's peaches and roses and butterflies and glitter and sparkles. It's not going to be that. And I think a lot of times when we're, on these panels and giving advice, sometimes it seems that way. Oh, she just seems, she's doing all this stuff. She's at USA Basketball. It's but there's so many steps that took me to get there, and understanding more about myself along the way. So it's a growth process, and there's no finish line. It's not.
There is none. No one really knows what they're doing. I mean, we do, but it really is that fake it till you make it kind of mentality. No one is going to love you. Not everyone is going to love you.
Yeah, I was there's some people that love you.
No, there are definitely people that love you, but there's going to be a few people who don't. And it's what can you do instead of pushing that pushing yourself onto that person? Kind of just accept it and kind of just use it as fuel to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And just be yourself.
Just be yourself. I really think that's probably been the biggest thing that I've learned is I've gotten a lot more opportunities, a lot more. Thank you, Liv. I love you too. I've gotten a lot more opportunities and things like that when I just was myself. I know that the first job I had, I told you before about the white shirt, the black skirt and all that stuff. The day that I got my first job at the Social Security Administration after law school, I had on a green dress. And I remember the judge was, interviewing me and doing all this other stuff. And I was just okay, left, got the job. And then when I was starting to work, I started getting these magazines in my chair, Vogue and Marie Claire and Vanity Fair. I'm where are these magazines coming from? And it was the judge. She was dropping them off, and she was these came to my house, and I was jotting. But I was they didn't come to your house because I can see she bought the magazine because it didn't have the address portion in there. But she was I remember that lovely green dress you had on when you worked, when you interviewed. And she was I just loved that, and I just loved your style and da da da. And it was just a ding ding for me. I don't have to fit into this mold of what I think this position has to be. And I think that that's one of the things I see a lot of times when I'm working with younger people younger than me, because I'm not that old, but let's just say
you're still young. You're hip.
I'm 35.
You're hip.
But I think and that's what I think I approached when I first started working was I have to be this role. I have to be, this is what an attorney is in my mind. It's almost like that character trope, when you put up NBA basketball and they're or, they're just moving, and they have all the little stats. That's kind of in my mind. This is what I have to fill out all these stats. And when I figured out it just had to be me, it just really freed everything for me. It was a weight off my shoulder. I don't have to be what I think they want. I just have to be myself.
Someone once told me, they were don't pay attention to the title or the company that you're working at, but more about the relationships that you can build. Because we see so many people that their manager moves on from the company and their assistant moves with them too. And it's about that relationship building that happened within that company, rather than chasing those titles.
Yeah, but I will also say is that there can be a myriad of reasons why you join a company. So I was talking to
of course,
the VP and GM of Intel in their sports division a couple of weeks ago, and she was telling me one of the reasons why she went to Intel was because of their presence in Asian markets, and she just really wanted to learn a lot more about it. And when I heard that, it was just kind of a ding ding for me because most people I want to know about the culture. I really like Amazon because I get my Prime the next day. I want to know how that works. But sometimes it's really about, I really want to know about your infrastructure. I really want to know if I want to work at Coca-Cola or something. I really want to know how you've been a company this long. And I really want to know how I can be able to keep it, long standing. So the different types, I think one of the things that I know I was not prepared for in law school was to interview. That was really bad. I would go to interviews and think okay, what is, what is the question I need to ask them? Like, I don't know. But at North Carolina Central, they actually allowed me as a student to interview professors with the professors who wanted to work at the law school. And that was one of the most invaluable experiences that I've had, because I could see that it wasn't just me. Like, there were professors who were coming in through, and they were like, and the first question we always ask them, why North Carolina Central? You could say it's a historically Black college or university. I love the area. You know, so most people would be like, because it's in North Carolina. Well, duh, North Carolina Central is in the name, but why do you want to work at this school? And so for me, that really clicked. I'm like, oh, I really don't just need to be interviewing because I want a job. I need to figure out, they want to know why I want to work with you. And then like the last question is always like, do you have any questions for us? And that was always the hardest thing for me. And I'll say like, one of the questions I generally ask is, if there's something, what is something that you were ultimately successful at that you would not repeat? And that
wow, I'm gonna write that one down.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I ask, because it helps me understand problem solving. What are some of the major problems that you have? How do you approach, problem solving? And again, what keeps you up at night? And that helps me out a lot. Or what makes you stay so long at this company? Why did you choose this place? What are you looking for in your next? Those are some of the questions that they're always going to hear. But when I'm asking those questions about, when they get to the, well, you have any questions for us? Usually that's, about the time of the end of the interview, but they're really trying to figure out about you, but you're trying to figure out about them. Who would I be reporting to? What are the characteristics of people who have been successful in this position? How, with the last person leaving, what is the vacuum that you need to fill with them? What are the opportunities for advancement? And those are things that I'm looking forward. I need to know, what are the opportunities for advancement? What are your takes on diversity and inclusion? What did you do for your employees during COVID? Like, did you all work from home? Did you all, think about, and one of the things I asked is, what have you learned as a leader in this pandemic? What has this pandemic forced you to understand as a leader? And what did you learn about your employees because of the pandemic? And so, and what is your take on innovation? Some of those things help me to understand, okay, these are things that are important to me, but what's important to you? And do these things match? So, those would be some of the advice I would get, because I know I was terrible at interviewing. I know that I had an interview with the NCAA in law school, and I was like, oh, okay, the NCAA, oh my God. And, talking to him, I thought I did good. And then at the end of the interview, I was like, nice phone meeting you, because that was the first phone interview I had. And I was like, oh, I know I didn't get that. But now that I actually work with the NCAA on like a daily basis. So people would text me and stuff. So I've actually told that story to, one of my colleagues there, and she was like, wait, you really said that? And I'm like, yeah. But it's funny, like, now it's a full circle moment. And it's one of the things that I learned from is like, I wasn't prepared for a phone interview. And, the professor that called me yesterday at the picnic was actually one of the professors told me like, wait, you need to be a little bit more prepared for these interviews. Like, you weren't good. And I need that type of honest feedback, because it doesn't hurt my feelings. Obviously it hurt my feelings at first. I was like, dang, I thought I did a good. But then I realized I wasn't prepared. I didn't know anything about the company. I didn't know anything about the program. I didn't know where I wanted to be. And so it's really about understanding who you are. How do I fit in here? And just having all your information available. I hate when people are unprepared. That gets on my nerves the worst. Yeah. Because I'm always prepared.
Right. You want that to be reciprocated. And I think that students, I think your career center is a great resource in terms of interviewing, informational interviews. I know that UCLA in particular offers like a interview with a Bruin with alumni. So you can practice with them as well. And you could do informational interviews with them. So definitely like look into your career center. They're definitely your best friend with resumes, cover letters, interviews. There's also like, we have something called VMOC, which is like streaming interviews. Like you'll get feedback where you talk to yourself. They like give you a prompt and then you talk, and then like it's 24 hours too. Yeah. So definitely like lots of free resources when you have that title of undergraduate student.
No, but one of the things that I would say is that I didn't take advantage of in undergrad. And I think it's partially, I know that me being a Black woman and being from the South, you go over someone's house and they're like, don't go over there asking for no food because, you don't want anybody thinking you're begging or anything like that. And so sometimes if you're a first generation student, if you're an African-American student, if you're a Hispanic student, if you're a student who's not used to having all these resources available to you, and you don't necessarily know how to ask for them. You're like, I've made it to the school and that's it. But there's so many things that are available to you. So I'm a member, I'm a board member at the General Alumni Association at Carolina. There's so many programs that are available to me that I didn't even know until I got on the board. Like we have like resume building and writing, and you can have career coaching once a year, but now it's unlimited because of COVID. And so I took advantage of it, and I'm, a professional myself. But being an undergrad, I wish I had taken advantage of some of those internships and the availability, because the network at some of these schools is so broad. At UCLA, like, hello, everybody knows the light blue and yellow, the other light blue. Carolina blue gets first. But I'm glad that you know about those programs and that you're able to be an advocate for the people around you, because a lot of times, especially like when you're going to these schools and you're the only person that looks like you, it's hard to kind of really feel embraced. But you have to embrace the experience. So I always talk about Carolina being the land of opportunity, and then me having my HBCU experiences really molding me into that person I am to get today, and in the I guess the position that I wanted to be, and then melding the two. So understanding that there are a broad, things of opportunity available for me, and not being afraid to take advantage of them. Like I just got into the Minority Sports Executive Pipeline Program. I probably would have never applied for that 2 or 3 years ago. Thank you. But I probably would never apply for that like 2, 3, 5 years ago, because I just was like, oh, I don't think that. But then when you apply and people are like, oh yeah, girl, check that off. It's like, oh, that is affirming. And people are like, you shouldn't seek affirmation. You have to give yourself daily, but those recognitions are important to your psyche. And so
definitely
you want to make sure you continue to take advantage of those programs. Even if you don't think you're going to get it that time, go ahead and put your name out there, because somebody might see and be like, hey, we couldn't put you in this program, but we want to pass your resume off to someone else. Like I've interviewed at places and the person couldn't hire me because, like you said, they may have brought somebody on with them, but they're like, I know somebody that might need somebody like you. And they pass my resume on. I'm like, play hot potato if you want to, I'm fine, And so it's just one of those types of things that, I think is very important. It's like, you have to embrace it, and understanding that your culture is important and that your voice is important, and you need to hear it from the top down. There may be people who look like you who are being affected by the policies or procedures. And, sometimes that cultural competency is lacking. So providing that cultural competency in your organization is also one of your, the things in your NBA list, like NBA 2K or whatever. Like that's part of the thing. Your cultural competency is needed. And so I think whether you're white, Black, a man, woman, LGBTQ, trans, non-binary, I think that all of those viewpoints are needed. And sometimes people just don't know how to embrace them and embrace the uniqueness that is them. I used to try to fit in all the time, and now I realize that fitting in is boring. Just be yourself.
Be yourself. That's literally my motto all the time. I'm like, how can I put a Leyla touch on this? Or like, this doesn't really feel like me. And it's like,
yes,
it's so interesting. Like even when we text sometimes, like I can read my friends like texting and stuff. I was like, that is not you. And I'll call them and be like, that's not you. They're like, oh yeah, like I was copying and pasting from what someone else told me to say.
That's important too, because as you and I, we had that head nod on the crime podcast and stuff like that. Sometimes people they're like, hey, that was not them. We need to go check on them. Like something is not right. But it also puts your unique stamp on things. And so like people like, I remember even in law school writing an essay, and the professor used it as like the model essay. And my study partner texted me and was like, that style looks familiar. Is that your essay? And I was like, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it was me. So, I think understanding that my uniqueness is my gift, and that there's no one else anywhere like me.
Yeah.
And there's no one anywhere else like Leyla. Like there's nobody. And so realizing that, hey, like you're going to be lucky to get me. Like, and that's kind of how you don't take it in that arrogance. You don't bring arrogance in there, because sometimes you can tell that and you're like, next. But really being your own champion too. And that's one of the things I've had to work on, is that self-deprecating stuff is really, yeah, you can throw that to the side. You don't have to, being humble is fine. Being self-deprecating is another thing.
Yeah. And then I think that a lot of us, we get really stuck up on like, well, what am I good at? What do I bring to the table? Because it's like, you don't want to be arrogant and be like, I'm the best at X, Y, Z. And I think that like, I really tap into like my close group of friends and just like, not so much my mom, because she's always like, you're good at this and that. And I'm like, I'm not good at everything. Like I have flaws, but it's like, she will call them out. But it's like, I ask my friends, I'm like, what do you come to me for? And it's like, or I try to pay attention to certain trends. Like they're coming to me for advice about X, Y, Z, or they hit me up whenever they see this on my Instagram story, but why only this and not something else that I posted? So it's really just paying attention to your environment. Like whenever I post, like I'm at a game, they're like, oh, how'd you get tickets? Why are you there? What are you doing? Let me get in. And I'm like, oh, okay. But when I post about, exactly. So
no, I think that's just really important. Yeah, and I need your mama to come and like pick me up, every once in a while, say, oh, well, you're doing good. I mean, because my mom, she listened to a podcast I did, and she was just like, that was really good. But the one thing that I would say is that you talk too fast. I'm like, Mom, I've been talking fast for however long. You always talked about me, like with the Cosby Show kid, the girl that was talking like, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I've been working on it for years. I don't know if that's gonna slow down, but even having like family and people, people that you can consider family, to just really listen to yourself and give you constructive feedback that makes sense, like, and absorbing it. Like right now, I think that there's just such a, with Instagram, it's like, all right, let's curate. I think that's my new word. Like, let's curate our look, let's curate our life. And it's like, that's not real life. Like you can curate a museum. That's what people are going to look at. But the behind the scenes is so different. You have to put the clothes on the mannequins. You have to, sweep the floors. You have to do so many things that are not sexy to make this curated experience look like something that somebody wants to be a part of. But that's also your gift too, is like, I've made all the bad stuff disappear, and now you're just like, well, how did you do that? Well, what I did was I had to email 5 people, talk to them, go up to the place, pay $5, tell them I was going to go and take a picture of their kid, and then now I have these seats. Like nobody is wanting to do that work. And so when the behind the scenes, you can take a lot more pride in it. And so I think taking that pride in yourself, that's what we used to say at Carolina with the cheerleading, we go pride, 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 and more pride. So pride in yourself, pride in who you represent, and pride in where you're going.
And I think that's a beautiful note to end on, because I think we could keep going forever. Yeah. So just, I guess, a huge thank you from me and whoever is going to watch this, with a lot of good takeaways. So watch this whenever you can. Take a lot of notes. You dropped a lot of good questions to ask at the end of an interview. And I guess like how to read people and connect with them to figure out like where your passions align, and a lot of stuff about law school as well. So thank you. Would love to keep in touch with you and see where you go moving forward.
Thank you. I'd love to see where you go moving forward. I want to, be part of the Leyla rocket ship to the moon.
Thank you. That actually really means a lot. So I really appreciate it. And I think that a lot of us students, like when professionals say like, I want to be in your corner and support you, they genuinely, they mean it. So take them up on their offer, help them help you, but also help them.
Y'all listening to Leyla, she's dropping good gems, because sometimes you work with people and then you're like, I want to work with them. And they're like, all right, bye. And you're like, okay, well, all right. But no, Leyla's dropping gems too, y'all. Write those down.
We're both dropping lots of gems. It's that energy. We're matching each other's energy. It's that curly girl energy. Amazing.